What are we talking about? Come on, man.
Hey everybody, welcome. It's that time again. Matt Connarton Unleashed, and we are live from the studios of WMNH 95.3 FM in glorious, bright, sunny, warm downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. Also on Comcast 97 if you're in Manchester, streaming at WMNHradio.org and on the Facebook, on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. And you can always go to my website as well, mattconnerton.com, to get access to the show, the live stream, and all the contact info, etc., etc. Today is a Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021, and it is the weather just gets better and better. I just hope, I prefer the sunshine, but we are going to need some rain at some point because we had a very dry winter. And I'm just kind of wondering if we're going to end up in the same place that we did last year, where we had a really dry winter and then a really dry spring, and then it was a really dry summer. And I heard stories of people's wells going dry, and it's like, I like all the sunshine, but might need a little bit of rain. I was a couple days ago, as I was going over the bridge, I noticed, looking down at the river, all the rocks I could see. It was like the water level is really low. But anyway, it is nice to have some glorious spring weather on this Tuesday afternoon. So welcome to the show. I do want to remind you, of course, we are proudly sponsored by the Hop Knot in the Brady Sullivan, right across the street at 1000 Elm Street. Don't go there today. Monday and Tuesday is their weekend, but they will be open tomorrow. And, of course, they're open Wednesday through Sunday. They have delicious gourmet pretzels. They have craft beer. They have wine. I recommend, and I believe our friend Rocky Huber got it too recently. He had posted on Facebook the pizza pretzel. Oh, my goodness. It is so good. It is so good. Jenny and I finally tried it for the first time last week, and we were really glad that we did. But all the food there is great. It's a wonderful family that owns and operates it, and they do things very safely there. The staff wears face masks, even out back in the kitchen. The tables are nice and spread out. They do clean and sanitize consistently and diligently, and we'll be seeing. I didn't peek and see if, no, they'd probably do it. I would assume with this weather that we're having, it would be sooner rather than later, the wonderful outdoor dining. They've, last year, before the cold weather hit, they had a really nice setup. And so I presume that will resume shortly. So we look forward to that. Some of the restaurants here in downtown Manchester are already doing it. And it's great to see. And please support your local restaurants and support the Hop Knot because, they're a sponsor. And yes, I have a vested interest in their success, because their success is our success, because they help to pay the bills. But it is a great place, and everyone who goes there loves it. Let's see. We'll say hello to everybody in the Facebook live chat. Brian Mackey, all the way from Idaho, first one in today. Hello, Brian. Mike Pelopita says hello, everyone. Mike, of course, from another one of our wonderful sponsors here at WMNH 95.3, Queen City Cabinetry. Hello, Mike. Wayne Noel, who is a top fan all the way from Michigan, says good afternoon, all. Melanie Laliberte says, I hit the love emoji by accident. I'm not sending you random love like a weirdo. Oh, that's quite all right, Melanie. I'll accept random love. Let's see. Jenny is in the chat. Jenny says, shalom, peeps. I always say, I have an axiom that regarding this show specifically, I always say, I'd rather be loved than hated, but I'd rather be hated than ignored, because, and I mention that because our friend Chris James from Not Even a Show is apparently very upset with me. So, and it's actually bothering me. It actually is bothering me. I don't really know what to do about it. at the moment, but it genuinely is bothering me, which is unusual. Usually I'm able to, anything related to the show, I'm able to compartmentalize these things and shrug them off, but I'm genuinely bothered. Rob Dion is in the chat room. Rob, of course, part of the WMNH family. He is the host of a program called Through the Stage Door, and you can hear him Thursday mornings on the morning show with the Entertainment Report, and they do Name That Tune, and Rob actually brings in his keyboard. He lugs that in every Thursday, and it's awesome. So, hello, Rob. I also did see Rocky Huber. His ears must have been burning. Rocky, it was the, if you want to chime in the chat room, it was the pizza pretzel, right, that you tried from the Hop Knot recently and found it quite delicious. It really is good. It really is good. Well, let me give the numbers again, and then we'll get into some issues. Hello to Tony D in the Facebook live chat. Tony says, "What's up, peeps?" Tony, of course, from Philadelphia, and Tony will be making his return to FM radio in his market, in his area, very, very soon. So hello, sir. And if you're watching online, you can see I'm representing. I've got my Tony D shirt on today, my TD podcast. So there you go. We do have a lot to get into today, of course. There is, as always, no shortage of things in the news going on. And one of them we'll touch on kind of briefly. I don't want to invest too much of the show in it because I get, if you're a longtime listener, you know I don't really like talking about this stuff. I mean, we will probably, as the show progresses, talk about some of the policy decisions and arguments and so forth around what happened in terms of gun control, but I don't want to spend too much time on the details of this, but just an update for you, because really, you can turn on news, any of the cable news stations, and this is all they're talking about. It's not all they're talking about today, but it kind of sucks up all the oxygen whenever there's a mass shooting. Now we've had a couple of them in as many weeks. Reuters reports a day after Colorado grocery store massacre, a suspect is in custody, but few answers. Says here, police today identified the 21-year-old suspect accused of killing 10 people, including a policeman, in a hail of bullets at a Colorado supermarket, marking the U.S.'s second mass shooting in a week and adding to the state's tragic history of deadly massacres. Now, of course, many of us will remember Columbine. That was the first that comes to mind. And there was, and Aurora, which was a shooting at the movie theater. The suspect, I'm not even going to say his name, stormed the King Soopers outlet in Boulder, armed with an AR-style semi-automatic rifle and a handgun, and wearing a tactical vest, all of which were recovered after Monday's shooting, according to an arrest affidavit filed by police. The affidavit said the law enforcement databases show the shooter purchased a Ruger AR-556 pistol, a weapon that resembles a semi-automatic rifle, and a 30-round capacity on March 16, 6 days before the shooting. He was released from a hospital where he was treated for a leg wound suffered in an exchange of gunfire with responding police and transported to county jail this afternoon to await an initial court appearance on murder and other charges. His criminal history shows a single charge for third-degree assault in 2018, according to the affidavit. Authorities said they were confident he acted alone, though they did not offer any details on what might have motivated him to open fire at the store about 28 miles northwest of Denver. Michael Schneider, the agent in charge of the FBI's field office in Denver, said at a news briefing, quote, "It would be premature for us to draw any conclusions at this time," unquote. The 10 victims range in age from 20 to 63 and include Eric Talley, an 11-year veteran of the Boulder Police Force. Talley, age 51, was the father of 7 children who had recently been looking for a less dangerous job, according to a statement released by his father. Police identified 9 other victims as Denny Strong, age 20, Nevin Stanisic, age 23, Ricky Olds, 25, Trelona, Bart Kawiak, age 49, Suzanne Fountain, 59, Terry Leaker, 51, Kevin Mahoney, 61, Lynn Murray, 62, and Jody Waters, 65. Monday's attack, which began around 2:40 p.m., drew hundreds of police officers to the scene and sent terrified shoppers and employees fleeing for safety amid the sound of gunfire. Colorado has been the site of some of the most shocking episodes of gun violence in U.S. history, including the 2012 mass shooting at a movie theater in Aurora and the 1999 rampage at Columbine High School. The latest bloodshed came only 6 days after a gunman went on a killing spree on March 16 in Atlanta, fatally shooting 8 people at 3 day spas before he was arrested. Colorado Governor Jared Polis said today, quote, "My heart aches today. Flags have barely been raised back to full mast after the tragic shooting in Atlanta that claimed 8 lives, and now a tragedy here close to home at a grocery store that could be any of our neighborhood grocery stores," unquote. The 2 mass shootings are likely to intensify pressure on Democratic President Joe Biden to fulfill his campaign pledge to enact tougher gun limits, but legislation to ban assault-style weapons and tighten background checks have stalled amid Republican opposition in Congress. Biden said at the White House today, quote, "I don't need to wait another minute, let alone another hour, to make common-sense steps that will save lives in the future. This is not and should not be a partisan issue," unquote. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, the Democrat leaders in Congress, both said on today that the violence again underscored the need for stricter gun laws. Well, again, we might come back to all this later. We do have some other things I want to try to get to first, but we might come back to that part of it later. But I just wanted to get the facts of the story out and kind of update anybody who hadn't, who needed it. If you're in your car and you needed an update, but like I said, cable news is going to spend all day on it, I'm sure. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Ooh-ha.
Ooh-ha. Tony D, how are you, my friend?
Oh, man, what a crazy story you're reading.
Yes.
A crazy story.
Yes.
I read into it more today, and he was suffering with mental health issues.
Oh, yeah.
Also.
Well, I always think that's a given. I mean, anyone who would do something like this obviously is having a mental health problem. And, as you and I have discussed many times on the show, we definitely have a mental health crisis in this country.
Yeah, we do. And this plays a serious role in it. I mean, do you remember the Amish school that got shot up probably about 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago? You remember that? Remember that massive shooting at the little Amish school on the side road? The guy just pulled up in his F-150, walked into the Amish school and just shot it up and killed all those Amish kids.
It sounds familiar. I may not remember it that clearly, though, because and by the way, I don't mind you bringing it up. I don't mind discussing it. Of course, we should discuss it. But I do have, just kind of so the audience understands this about me, I think I have this sort of impulse to whenever it comes to something like this, I think I have a natural impulse, especially when you're talking about kids, in my mind. Not consciously, but sort of subconsciously or unconsciously. I think I blur details out without even meaning to do it because it's so heartbreaking.
It is. But the reason why I bring it up is the last 6 shootings that involved mass shootings, every single one of them had a psychiatric disorder.
Yeah.
And they were all classified with psychiatric disorders. My thing is how the hell are you getting guns? How the hell are you buying weapons when you are seeing someone for psychiatric problems?
Right.
And it confuses me because I'll just dig a little into my story. When I was hospitalized for my mental health, I was hospitalized for over 3 weeks. I had to sign a waiver that went to the state. It does not allow me to purchase any type of weapon because I was under suicidal watch while I was in there. I'm not allowed to purchase a weapon.
Really?
I'm not allowed. I can't.
If
I go to the local police department, it is on my record to show that I am not allowed to apply for a permit for a weapon due to the fact of my psychiatric state.
And
I don't know if that's a state-to-state thing.
Yes.
I don't know if that is a countrywide thing. But
No.
I know here, where I reside in New Jersey, I am not allowed to obtain a firearms permit or allowed to go to a gun range.
Now, New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken, Tony, New Jersey has pretty strict gun laws generally, correct?
Very strict.
Okay. Now, I know that this is what they call red flag laws, which is a continuing subject of discussion in this country within the larger topic of gun control. And I have when we get into this stuff, I have a lot of mixed feelings. I'm very conflicted on a lot of this, and I know that. So red flag laws, I understand, and I'm sympathetic to the arguments on both sides of it. So people who argue in favor of red flag laws say that you need to have these laws so that something like what just happened, or, look, anyone who could carry out this obviously is mentally ill, right? Any kind of a mass shooting, right? You can just assume that there's some level of mental illness here. So people who argue in favor of red flag laws will tell you that this is a tool in our toolbox to prevent this kind of thing from happening. And so if someone is mentally ill in some way, they should be prohibited from having a gun. That's the pro-red flag law argument. Some of the anti-red flag law arguments. Now, there's, of course, the broad argument that people who are very pro-2A will make that, they don't want any kind of laws or regulation. But the more sophisticated argument against red flag laws is, and again, I'm not taking a solid position on it specifically because I'm sympathetic to both sides of it. I'm conflicted. But the argument against the red flag laws on sort of a micro level is that you run into situations where someone might be perfectly fine to have a gun, but, millions of people in this country struggle with depression or anxiety issues or whatever it may be, who are, in fact, perfectly harmless, and there's no chance that they're going to harm another person. But if these red flag laws are used, you always run that risk that someone who maybe, in fact, there was a specific example that someone told me about here in New Hampshire of someone who was going through a divorce, went to see a psychiatrist or some sort of, to get some sort of therapy, to get through this ordeal, and ended up getting red flagged and couldn't get a gun in their local, or it was something, because I don't think we have a red flag law here in New Hampshire, but there was something local where, like, the local sheriff went to the gun range, found out about this person being treated, and said, don't sell them a gun or something like that. The gun store, not the gun range. So there's arguments on both sides of it, but I assume. Is this a permanent thing? Like, are you
permanent for the rest of my life? For
the rest of your life, you cannot own a gun in
New Jersey.
With that.
I'm okay with
You're
that.
okay with it? Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Because, how do I word this without peeing people off?
Hey, it's the right.
Guns.
You're on the right show for it.
Yeah. Me personally, I feel like the gun reform and the gun laws need to be a lot more stricter. There's a lot of guns. There's a lot of guns in hands of people that I know personally that shouldn't have guns.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when this whole MAGA cult thing. I got a lot of MAGA friends.
Yeah.
Not me in general, but I have MAGA friends that were saying that they were stocking up on ammunition. They were stocking up on gun piles.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't get into a gun store to get your AR-15 because they were all sold out.
Mm-hmm.
And their rhetoric on why they were doing it was crazy. The way that they were talking, thinking that there was going to be a civil war, and if you come onto my property, that I'll just shoot you, and and I'm being real with you. I'm being real with you and the listeners. This is the things that I've heard.
Yeah,
and I have distanced myself from these type of people.
Good move.
But the reform needs to be stronger. It needs to be stricter. It needs to be pushed, because I understand the it's your right to own a gun.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go over the last 10 years and the massive amount of innocent lives due to, unjustified killing,
Mm-hmm.
of innocent people.
Yeah.
It's happening more and more. You go back to the movie, The Dark Knight, when that first came out in Colorado.
In Aurora.
And
Yep.
then you had that shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to Connecticut. You have that shooting at a school.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to Lancaster, PA, where the Amish school. You have that shooting. You have the nightclub because of a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, yes.
You have that shooting. I mean, you have Columbine. You have the Florida school. I mean, listen to this list that goes on and on
Mm-hmm.
and on, and the mass amount of people, and we haven't done anything about it because we're stubborn, because this is our right. This is our right to own a gun. I get it. It's your right. But the people that are getting these guns shouldn't have them.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's like the healthcare system. The healthcare system is broken. Well, if the healthcare system was fixed, maybe this would fix something like that.
Right.
Like how Jersey has these strict laws where I'll never be able to own a gun a day in my life, and I am perfectly fine with that. My wife, because we live together, and because I'm red flag, she can't purchase a gun because we are married, and I am red flag, so a gun cannot be in my home at all.
Yeah.
She can't
Wow.
even apply for it because we're married and I'm red flag.
Right. Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
So, well, see, a lot of people would have a huge problem with that, but it's interesting that you're not bothered by it because it's interesting because you're not going to hurt anybody, but you're okay with the government saying you can't. It's a very unique perspective you have. That's why I'm so fascinated by it.
I'm glad they did it.
Yeah.
Because just say one day my mental illness takes the best of me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You never know with mental illness. It creeps up on you in different ways.
Fair enough.
And one day it creeps up on me and I'm feeling like today's the day I want to blow my head off. I don't have that right. I don't have that right because I don't have anything to do that. And go ahead in the chat room and say, well, you could just buy it illegally off the street. I'm not going to go that way and that route to do something like that because by the time that you think that through, it's like, who do you call? Who do you know that owns a gun?
Mm-hmm.
And then especially I let people know around me, and this is just me, that like I won't go to a gun range. I don't want to go to a gun range.
Yeah.
Because guns aren't for me. I think guns are for the cops in the military, and that's just my say on it. It's just,
Yeah.
I understand people that like to go hunting and stuff like that. I get that, but there's other ways to look at it. I'm different. That's the thing. I'm different. I'm red flagged already.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And I have no intentions on ever wanting to own a firearm in my home, let alone my kids knowing that there's a firearm in the home. Yes, I can protect my home, but there's other ways to protect my home.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I got two greasy pit bulls over here that they'll tear your face apart if you come to my house and they don't know you.
Yeah.
That's my way.
No, I think I think you have
go ahead.
I think you have a very enlightened perspective on it. But let me ask you this: so in some states they have or at least it is argued for. And Wayne Noel in the chat room says, I didn't realize that 39 states have mandatory duty to protect / warn mandatory laws. I didn't realize that many states had that, Wayne. So that's interesting. But are you in favor of being able to? And it sounds like this is not an option in New Jersey, but are you in favor of, or if it were, from what you've told us, you would not take this option if it was available to you, but do you think it should be an available option for some people to appeal this decision? Like, say, for example,
depending on your diagnosis.
Yeah.
If you're a schizophrenic,
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You should not own a gun.
Oh, I agree. Agreed.
If you are split personality disorder, you should not own a gun.
Right.
If you are someone who suffers from mild depression, maybe there's wiggle room. But if you have cases, and Jenny knows this, there's an app that's called Active 911. It's for first responders. It's usually when you're responding to a call, it gives you the whole caller screen of whose house you're going to and all the past cases of what we've been there for.
Oh.
If you're a frequent flyer.
Interesting.
Right? If you're a frequent flyer.
Yeah.
And you have a suspect ID number for multiple psychiatric times of us coming to your house, maybe put a cap on that. If the EMS has come to your house 6, 7, 8 times for psychiatric emergencies, maybe we should red flag you or something. If you've been hospitalized for schizophrenia, suicide, attempted suicide, anything like that, you should be red flagged. Because no matter what, when you go into a hospital setting, I forget what it's called. It's like a 722 or something they call it. I'm probably completely wrong. But it's like they put you on a 48-hour hold. You can't get out of the hospital. You're under their vision. No one can get you out. You're locked in. I forget what the term is. But if they can do that, then they can do this to the gun reform. The wrong people are getting these guns. And these people have been diagnosed with severe mental illness issues. Every single case that I have read off to you, and I'm looking at it now, especially with the Lancaster one, was a mental illness case.
Well, yeah, but to me though, that's obvious. And anyone who could commit a mass shooting obviously is mentally ill.
So maybe we take away from looking at taking the rights of the guns away from everyone, and we look at the people who have severe mental illness cases, and then you build a program to stop them from being able to purchase these weapons. It's pretty simple. I mean, it was simple enough for them to do it to me. Why isn't it simple enough to do it to anyone else? It's because every state's different.
Yeah,
that's what it breaks down to. It's a state thing. It's not going to be this federal thing where I wish it was. And I think that's what they're trying to push for.
That may be coming because if the assault weapons ban, which we had in the 90s, and I think mid-90s I think it lasted for 10 years and then it sunsetted, but that would be federal. Or Biden has even suggested, I think, either explicitly or implicitly, that he may do some sort of executive action on that. Which again, I'm deeply conflicted about. That's part of why this is so interesting to me.
You're going to have confliction with it. You're going to have confliction, but you also got to look at saving lives, and you also got to look at that picture.
Yeah,
because these people that are getting these guns, Matt, they're not right in the head. They're not there.
But then, go ahead. But let me ask you this then, Tony: is it perhaps that we need to focus much more on fixing, because we have a mental health crisis in this country. We had it pre-pandemic, of course, but now it's exacerbated by the pandemic, but we already had it. It's been going on for decades. I think we can all agree on that. There are not enough resources for mental health. So is that where we should be focused? Because it's interesting.
I think that's where it begins.
Well, as I'm talking to you, I'm beginning to wonder if, because the way, we're a country full of binary thinkers, and everybody thinks you have to be either pro-gun control or anti-gun control or this or that. And I'm wondering, are these ideas and potential options and remedies, maybe they're not so mutually exclusive. Maybe the focus needs to be on a combination of fixing, Republicans will say, well, it's not the gun laws, it's a mental health issue. So, but, Democrats will say, well, yeah, there's a mental health issue, but we also need stricter gun laws. So maybe we should focus on the mental health aspect of it, doing something about mental health resources, but also doing something, maybe enhanced background checks, which even polling data shows not draconian new laws, and not even an assault weapons ban, but just enhanced background checks, which polling data shows even a lot of Republicans support enhanced background checks. It's the NRA that keeps getting in the way of that, but I don't know if the NRA is relevant anymore.
That's who the problem has been.
Mm-hmm. The NRA?
The NRA.
Yeah.
The NRA.
Yeah.
See, I will agree with you. I am a Democrat, but the Republican side on the mental health crisis, I agree with. You need to combine the two.
Mm-hmm.
You need to combine allocating money to mental health along with stricter laws on guns for people with mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
You need to combine both of them. Because if you're going to just say we got a mental health crisis and you address the mental health crisis, but you don't address the gun reform, nothing gets settled. Nothing gets settled at all.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to combine the two and come to a mutual agreement that, yes, both of these things need to be looked at. It's not about taking the right away from every average American that likes to go out and hunt and everything like that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it begins with mental health.
Mm-hmm.
The people who've been diagnosed with schizophrenia, split personality disorder, hallucination, any type of thing that alters your demeanor, you should not own a gun. If you can't drive a car, and if your mental health illness stops you and debilitates you to the point that you have to be on, well, I won't say it like that, to the point that it can't let you drive because your anxiety's so bad.
Mm-hmm.
A car is like a weapon, Matt. You could drive through a crowd of people with a car. What stops them from getting a gun also?
Mm-hmm.
A car is like a weapon. So if you could take someone's license away, excuse me, for mental health reasons because they don't want them behind the wheel of a car because they get erratic, what stops them from getting a gun also?
Mm-hmm.
Because you could use a car as a weapon. And we've seen that in New York. We've seen people fly through people on the curbs of New York.
Oh, that's what happened to Heather Heyer in Charlottesville. When
right.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you can take this in stages and bring up so many things, but if it all adverts back to that main thing, once you start doing that brainstorming and you start branching out, and it all stems back to mental health issues, that's where it needs to begin.
Mm-hmm.
You need to start at the root, and then you need to start branching off and saying, well, it doesn't affect this, it doesn't affect that, it doesn't affect this.
Right.
But this type of person, and I'm not trying to, classify someone with a mental illness because I'm a person with a mental illness.
Yep. Same.
If you are a schizophrenic, you are never going to own a gun. And what is wrong with that? Who would be against that? Who would have the balls to sit there and say, yeah, I want a schizophrenic to have a gun? Who would fight? Well,
somebody in the chat room actually. Let me see if I can find the comment, and somebody did object to that. It was Melanie. Let me just back up. Okay, here's what she says. She said, "I disagree about schizophrenia or mood disorders automatically banning gun ownership. Those labels may be needed to prescribe a specific med from psychiatrists." And insurance only pays if you have that label.
That's so false. That's so false. That is such a false statement. Because you're telling me that you are okay with someone who believes in the voices in their head, if they're schizophrenic, to tell them to go out today and do something. If you know what a full-blown schizophrenic is, or someone who's borderline schizophrenia, and they have something that is talking to them in their head and telling them to do something that they can't control, and they go out and do it, you're okay with that then. That's what you're telling me.
She says
you're okay with someone going out and someone out because the voices in their head are telling them to do it, or and this is real stuff. There's data and there's data and research that shows that like 70% of people that have murdered people have been schizophrenic. I mean, there's data that shows this.
What was that percentage again, Tony?
It was like 70%
wow.
of like the Charles Mansons and all those people. They were schizophrenic.
Right.
These mass murderings and these cults. I mean, you can't tell me you can be okay with someone who has schizophrenia owning an AR-15. You can't tell me that that's okay.
Melanie in the chat, she seems to be concerned with labeling people as
I'm labeling myself, Melanie.
Yeah.
I'm a schizophrenic. I'm labeling myself. I'm not labeling anyone else. I'm labeling myself and the people who deal with this on a daily basis. I'm a schizophrenic who is on antipsychotic medication. So to sit there and say that I'm labeling someone, no, I'm labeling myself. I'm telling you the voices in my head when I get them without my medication, it's a really dark place.
Yeah.
If you don't deal with it and you don't address it, it gets really, really scary. So unless you deal with it and know what you're dealing with.
Yeah. I didn't know you were schizophrenic, Tony. I don't think you've ever revealed that specifically on the show.
I'm very open about my mental health.
Yeah.
I'm very open.
Yeah.
I take 6 medications a day.
Oh.
And it gets very dark and very, very scary at times.
Yeah.
But I'm labeling myself.
Yeah, yeah.
So to sit there and say that, like, you're putting a mislabel on someone, no, I'm not. Because once you go to an IOP and you're sitting in a room with 20 people who are schizophrenic and you're sitting there talking about the voices in their head or they see blood coming down the walls because their head's doing that to them, is that someone that you want to own a gun?
So
I'm being real with you.
Melanie says, I don't disagree with what he is saying, but blanket rules make me nervous. I understand what she's saying, but that's kind of the that's what people who argue against red flag laws, that's what they would say is
it's about your rights being taken away. That's what this breaks down to. Your rights being taken away. I'm not sitting here saying to take your rights away.
Right.
I'm sitting here saying refine the system, adjust the mental health crisis, fix it.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, when you do that, add the gun reform to people who have mental health issues, serious mental health issues, and take the right away from them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because they don't deserve a gun. They do not deserve a gun. Anyone who hears voices in their head, Matt, would you want... If there was a guy sitting across from you, Matt, and he's saying that something in his head is telling him to punch you in the face right now, would you be a little concerned sitting there looking at this guy?
I think I would. I think I'd be, I mean, I can handle myself, but I'd be concerned about what's going to happen to him.
But he's saying
kidding.
to you something in his head is telling you.
No, I agree.
Telling him to do that.
Yeah. No, that would be.
That's how it works with schizophrenia and suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're sitting there, you're fine, and next thing you know, you want to kill yourself.
Yeah.
Where's that come from? Just one day you wake up and you say, you know what, I'm going to go to the supermarket today and shoot it up. Just because I got that feeling. Anyway, I can go on and on with this. I don't want to start a buzz.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of talk in the chat room, but it's it's a complicated subject, and I'm glad that we're able to have these discussions about it.
Brian Mackey would call in. I wish Brian would call in. Brian's views on mental health are so real. Are so real. I would love to hear Brian call in and say, you know what? This is what I think about people who have mental illness. Because if Brian were to call in, I'd sit there and listen.
Yeah,
I would listen.
Well,
me and Brian have had a serious conversation.
Oh yeah. Well, he's certainly welcome to. Absolutely, he is in the chat room. Yeah, perhaps he will.
So, Brian, if you can call in, I would love to hear you, bud. Anyway, that's my take on it. So.
All right, Tony. Well, thank you so much for the call, my friend. I appreciate it as always.
No problem, Matt. Be good.
All right, you too, man. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, our friend Tony D from Philadelphia. Nice to hear from Tony. And, he's going to be, like I mentioned, he's going to be making his return to FM radio shortly. But there's also the Tony D podcast you can find online. If you're watching online, you can see I'm repping the shirt today. But that does open up a line for you, 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. I had some other stuff, but maybe we'll save the other stuff for the second hour, and we'll stay on this because there's a lot of very interesting comments in the chat room that I do want to get to and continue to take your calls on this as well. And we have another call. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
It's Brian Mackey.
Hey, Brian. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not sure what I can say that Tony didn't cover. I mean, Tony and I have had really good discussions, and you and I have had a few. And, you know, I wear a really, I think, poorly designed jacket of mental illness. It's 7+, you know, whatever they want to call them, PTSD, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But when it comes to guns, I self-police myself. I like Tony. I know better.
Yeah.
I don't need someone to tell me no. I actually petitioned to get my rights back because I do have the right to defend myself.
Okay.
But what I have in place is non-lethal home defense.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting hit in the face with one of the things I had would certainly make you want to feel like you were dead, I guess. But you still have to have your rights to own some of those, even though they're non-lethal. They're still a firearm. But I'm not sure. I mean, what else to add other than, in my world, it's about knowing yourself. And this is why I don't partake in a lot of the meds. I gave them up because they don't work. And this is where that whole shitstorm. Excuse me.
Sorry,
where everything started last year was my opinion about meds.
Yes.
It's just an opinion.
Yeah.
It works for me. Close to $90 a month in medication that doesn't do anything. Why would I pay for that?
Yeah. Well, I remember
I
remember the conflict that happened, not on this show, but on a different show, was someone felt that you were. We should clarify it here, just so no one here gets the wrong idea or misunderstands what you're saying. You're not saying that people who need medication shouldn't be on medication. You're just talking about your own situation and what works and does not work for you specifically.
Yes. Yeah, and I was on some of the same medication that Tony's still on.
Oh.
And Tony will tell you, there's one, we had the discussion. I think I remember that he doesn't take his either, but it's Depakote, which is a schizophrenic medicine, that is like $45 a month for a copay, a good insurance copay.
Jeez.
That isn't, it doesn't do anything. It's a giant horse pill.
Yeah.
But, I became well aware of my mental illness on a full metal jacket and when I was 40 years old. And I opted to do a lot of self-policing. It's my choice not to cause others harm. It's my choice not to put myself in a position where it would be my PTSD, not my schizophrenia, that would cause me to go off. But it's something you can't take back. You pull that trigger and it's over.
Right.
Someone's life is over. My life is over. So,
yeah.
I posted on a thing today after you posted that insulin deal about Biden's take on, this gun stuff and more rules and more regulations. So what you need to do is toss about $10 billion into mental health. Just stop the apropos standard of, Well, we're aware of mental health, but that's not the issue. Actually, it is the issue.
Right.
And you don't have to have that bad of a mental health situation. But there's nothing that anybody's doing in schools or middle school or college or anything to prepare you of a very dangerous thing called mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
It creeps up behind you, slaps you in the back of the head, and the next thing you know, you're messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's telling you you're messed up, and you need to take this or take that. Good psychiatrists like I had in Rhode Island, guy was like 90 years old, a double PhD, spent a year with me, a solid year before he put me on a single med.
No kidding.
And he
Wow.
put me on a single med that worked for 10 years. And we've discussed this. I talked to Tony about it. It's clonazepam.
Yeah.
And when I moved to Idaho, they're like, "Oh, we don't believe it. We don't believe in that drug, so we're going to take you off." And I've told you several times on No More Excuses, that's where my whole life fell apart, is when they took that anti-anxiety med away from me.
Mm-hmm.
One single med, and I don't get there's no euphoria for me. It's a maintenance drug.
Yeah.
I take it with my vitamin C.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent too, but
No, not really.
You know, I love what Tony does about speaking out about the mental illness. I wish a lot more people did, and I, quite frankly, wish we were still talking about it on the air. But you know, there's a reason we're not, and maybe in the future. But
Yeah.
I really don't know what to address other than how I do things, and I do them by just self-policing myself, checks and balances.
Right.
You know, my my diagnosis is just a little dynamic, for my opinion. I put a post up on Facebook this morning that in the last 16 months, my life has turned around.
Yeah. Good.
And if you know, you know.
Yep.
Just that simple.
Yeah.
All because people, I don't know, just stepped up a little and chimed in and/or listened.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. But I think that a lot of the mental health crisis is people feeling alienated and alone.
Yeah. Definitely.
You know.
Yeah. Definitely.
When you can't even conjure up a cyber friend to talk to or cry with or whatever.
Yeah.
It's brutal. The pain and the lack of ability to recover from that moment is ridiculously bad. That's why I have alcohol problems.
Yeah.
You know, because it's just, that's my go-to, and that's where I shut down, and, you know, I don't know.
Well, that's part of too. That's how that's an example too of how, you know, we already had a mental health crisis, and then you have the pandemic on top of it, which has made, you know, I mean, in a certain sense, and I've said this on the show before, we're lucky that the pandemic hit when it did, as opposed to say 20 years ago when the internet was, I mean, it wasn't new, but it was newish, and, you know, we didn't have the technology for people to stay in touch and maintain that sort of cyber contact that we do now. But for some people, that's not even enough. And some people feel very isolated, not being able to see people in person, or, you know, or not being able to be around people without wearing face masks. Just, you know, everybody in a face mask causes some people to feel isolated. So I think the pandemic has really exacerbated that. On the other hand, we're also fortunate to live in an era where people feel much more free and safer having these discussions. You know, what I struggle with is a tiny fraction of what someone like you or Tony D deals with. So I'm not trying to compare, but I just know that, like, for me, just with my depression, I wouldn't feel nearly as free and open discussing that a decade ago as I do now. I feel like we live in a time where, like I don't feel like it has the same stigma, and it's so common and so pervasive that I feel free being open about it. Again, it's nowhere near on what I deal with is not anywhere near on the scale of what you deal with, but I feel much freer talking about it now than I would have even 5 years ago.
Matt, to be honest, there's no scale.
Well, I know, but but I don't want to.
But part of mental health is being afraid to communicate.
Yeah. That
people will think you're a jerk or a loser or, oh my God, I just found this friend and now they don't want to be your friend anymore because,
yeah,
it's a sucky place to be, but communication helps. I think Tony will tell you.
Oh yeah.
The podcasting was a lifesaver for a while because I had someone once a week to talk to, regardless of the conversation. I knew it was coming and it would make me smile. And it was, for good, bad, or indifferent, it was someone to communicate with.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing that helped me in Rhode Island was group counseling, not one-on-one.
Yeah.
Because you fall into an area where now you're trusting what this guy says, and now you're playing follow the leader. That's not how you want to address mental health.
Mm-hmm.
You want to hear from lots of people who have mental health and build a trust. The next thing you know, you're talking to 7 total strangers over a period of 3 weeks. That conversation never leaves that room. But, man, you leave that room feeling like the Energizer Bunny.
Yeah.
Because you got it out. You got out everything from last week that was bugging you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to keep it inside anymore, and you don't go home worrying about someone's going to drop dime on you on Facebook.
Well, also, too, I mean, I would imagine there's just something very validating about sitting there with other people who also, and I assume in a group counseling session, you're with a people who have a variety of different kinds of challenges in terms of mental health, but again, it's that thing of, it really kind of removes the stigma, right? Because you're around other people who are also having a struggle, and everybody's able to be open about it, speak openly about it, and you certainly don't have to worry about somebody else in that room is going to judge you in some way because they're also dealing with mental health issues.
Right. It makes learning to trust easier.
It makes sense.
I didn't speak up for 3 weeks. It took me 3 weeks to just unfold my arms and go, yeah, whatever, and to start talking.
Yeah.
But when I did, it was like the dam broke.
Wow.
And for a year, I was like that old guy when Brian talks, people listen.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what the counselor told me one time, because I shut up for a while. I was having issues, and he's like, "Why aren't you talking? People are getting weird." And I'm like, "Well, they're already weird."
Right. Yeah.
This isn't my show.
Yeah.
But it makes a difference when people or learn how to trust again because of one person or several people,
mm-hmm.
and then those people automatically clam up. There's a cause and effect for that too, but
sure.
That's going off scope. I got to tell you, see, right now I feel amazing, and I got to thank Tony for calling me out to make the phone call.
Yep, absolutely.
But I don't know if anything I said helps.
No, I think it does. I think it does. And by the way, Tony did say in the chat room, you're correct. It is Depakote. And he is on Connarton now. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but
it's a great drug. If it's given to you correctly, you don't even know you're on it.
Huh.
What you do know is that you're not having anxiety attacks.
Yeah.
It's not like taking a Valium and you're like, whew, I feel good.
Yeah. Well, doesn't Valium make you just drowsy?
Klonopin?
No, Valium.
Well, Valium. If I take a 10 milligram Valium, I want to get horizontal for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I take a 10 milligram Klonopin. Well, not 10. It's 5. I took 3 5s a day. I take a 5 milligram in the morning. I don't feel it. All I know is by 11:30, I'm not freaking out over spilt coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm calm.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I mean, when it comes to guns, to spin it right back around, I don't own them. I filed for my rights to get them back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't own a real one.
In Rhode Island? In Rhode Island you did that?
No, here in Idaho.
Oh, okay. I
lost my rights not because of mental health.
Okay.
We've talked about it in the past.
Yeah.
I had a couple of educational on location periods in my life where they take everything away.
Understood.
Yeah, but what do you call it? And you can file and get those rights. I just wanted them back. As an American citizen, I wanted my rights back.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to ever use them.
Okay.
When it comes to lethal firearms in my home.
Yeah.
Nor would I even live with people that have lethal firearms. I've got, like I said, I've got non-lethal stuff that, well, will take you down.
Yeah.
But it won't kill you. But if you don't have rights to own a firearm, you can't own those things either.
Okay, understood. That makes sense then. Okay, yeah, interesting. And I would imagine Idaho probably has fairly lax gun laws in contrast with Rhode Island, I would assume.
Oh, good Lord. 18-year-olds in Idaho can get a carry permit.
Yeah.
And you got to be 21 to smoke.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
So, let me just hook you up with a 9mm because you're mature enough to know not to go out and shoot your buddy because he stole your cigarettes.
Right.
Yeah. Talk about a bad idea, but this state is full of bad ideas. And, when I get the opportunity to get out of here, I will, but I need somewhere to go.
Yeah.
Christian's got to move out of your place so I can move in. So just tell him his days are numbered.
Right. By the way, Tony said, you just made my day, Brian. Thank you for sharing the awareness. We need more of this. Oh, very nice.
We do. And if you're listening, Tony, we need to put the band back together one day a week.
There you go.
I think well, one, I wasn't ready for prime time.
Yeah.
So there's that. Two, I think a lot has come to pass that I think we could put that back together on a 30-minute, 45-minute thing a week and make some good out of it.
There you go.
There's an invitation, buddy.
For those who don't know, you're referring to the podcast that you and Tony D used to do.
Absolutely.
About
Yeah.
No,
it was not the what do you call it? It's all in your head. It was just one that Tony had invited me to do that was live, and I really wasn't ready for live. But I am now.
Good. That's good to hear. I'd love to see that happen.
This is I've called the station twice in a week, which is more than I called all of last year.
That's true. That's true.
There you go.
Very good.
All right. I'll let you go. But I mean, Tony's dead on, and he's very passionate about getting it out there.
Yes.
I lost a lot of that passion because I don't think Tony's as misunderstood as I am.
Okay.
If that makes sense. People don't get me, and for good reason. I don't get me, but the end result is I just try to police myself in all kinds of matters.
Yeah.
Where mental health is an issue. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. All right, Brian. Thank you so much for the call, my friend.
You bet.
All right.
Tell everybody hi. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. All right. Brian leaves us, and we're a little bit past the top of the hour. So here's what we'll do. We'll take a break. I'm going to play a song. We're going to show some love to our sponsors. We'll come back, and we're going to stay on this topic for a bit because I do want a lot of great comments and feedback in the Facebook live chat, and I don't want to let those just go by. So we'll look at those. We do have a couple of other things that we'll try to get to, but not having enough time to get to everything is actually a very nice problem to have, because I love having a very active show with calls and the Facebook live chat and all the social media activity and whatnot. So trust me, I'm not complaining when I say we might not get to everything. I'm not complaining. I'm very glad for all the interaction. But let's take a break, and we will be back. More Matt Connarton Unleashed coming up. Don't go away.
Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man.
Welcome back, everybody. We are well into hour number 2, numero dos of Matt Connarton Unleashed, and we are live from the studios of WMNH 95.3 FM. You know, I'm just realizing, I'm looking at the board, and I'm realizing how loud I have the headphones. The knob is at, it's like way turned up, and I wonder if I've damaged my hearing even further than it's already damaged. Just a random musing as I noticed that. Anyway, welcome everyone. I'm going to try to turn it down a little bit. I'm trying to be, that's a common thing with radio guys, is we tend to listen to ourselves much too loudly. And I already have tinnitus. I have the constant ringing. I'm only really conscious of it if I'm if I'm in a room that's completely silent, where it's just nice and quiet. That's when I notice, it's never really fully quiet, because I can hear the ringing. And I say, oops, yes, definitely damaged my ears. Anyway, so welcome. Of course, we are on WMNH 95.3 FM in glorious downtown Manchester, New Hampshire, where the weather is wonderful. Of course, also on Comcast 97 if you're in Manchester. Streaming online, you can go to mattconnerton.com for all your streaming live options. And, of course, on the Facebook, on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. Today is Tuesday, March 23, 2021. And the number to call, 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. You can also text me at 617-917-4476. Tweet me at Matt Connarton, or send an email to matt@mattconnerton.com. And, of course, you can always interact and opine in the Facebook live chat. But we'd love it if you call 603-250-6007. And I do want to remind you, of course, that we are proudly sponsored by the Hop Knot in the Brady Sullivan at 1000 Elm Street, right across the street. Don't go there today. Monday and Tuesday is their weekend, but they will be open tomorrow. And they have the delicious gourmet pretzels. And they have craft beer, and they have wine. And Thursday nights is trivia night. So you can always look forward to that. And soon, very soon, from what I hear, they will be resuming the outdoor dining. We certainly have the weather for it. And we have a call. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hey, is that Eazy-G? I finally wrote down that guy's name. He's on every Sunday night from 10 to 1 a.m. on another station, WGIR. His name is Bill Cunningham. You ever heard of that guy? He's a radio guy.
Bill Cunningham. Did he used to be a basketball coach or something?
I don't think so. No, he's always been on the radio, but he's been on every Sunday night now for like 15 years. He's a big Trumpster guy.
I'm sure he is.
Who isn't on the radio, right?
Well, me, and there's a few political talk show hosts who are not conservative. Arnie Arneson.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of them on GIR though.
Stephanie Miller. Oh yeah, GIR. Yeah, that's totally right wing conservative talk. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it's he'll talk a lot about serious topics, like the what's been going on with the guns and he was a big Rush Limbaugh guy. He had a 3-hour show about Rush and all his stuff. And I guess I got to write it down, but there's going to be a new guy taking his place. I guess the end of the month.
Taking his place? Why is Bill Cunningham retiring?
No, Rush taking over his 3 hours.
Oh, is it Donald Trump? There was that rumor at one point.
No, it's another guy I never heard of.
Tom Blanchard is asking.
I mean, he'll never take Rush Limbaugh's place, but
right
he's going to do his best to do.
Is Bill Cunningham from Happy
Days? 3 hours, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Is Bill Cunningham from Happy Days? Tom Blanchard is asking.
I don't think so. This is older gentleman.
Oh, a different different Cunningham
he's over 50,
family.
He's been on the radio for a long time. But anyways, the thought about the bad news in the media with the shootings and stuff. They were saying that there hasn't been a mass shooting in a year. So I was discussing with a buddy of mine. Says, "Well, glad that things are getting back to normal." Not really meaning that, but
right.
Everybody was staying at home, trying to be safe.
Yeah, well, we've had 2 mass shootings in a week now.
I know it's not good. Never good.
No, not good at all. Not good at all.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to have a firearm, Eazy-G?
What?
Are you allowed to have a firearm?
Oh no, I don't like guns at all.
No.
Never hold a gun. I don't intend to try it anytime soon.
No. Yeah,
I've never been one of those people that go into the woods, and shoot some animals.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm more of an indoor guy.
What? Oh, yes, me too. I don't like to go into the woods because I'm very afraid of contracting Lyme disease.
I know they were talking this morning when Mike Doyle was on about that show, Naked and Afraid.
Yeah, I heard a little bit of that. Yes.
Yeah, I would never last. I'm thinking you wouldn't either.
Why would you say that, Eazy-G?
Because you're not an outdoor guy.
That's true. I'm not an outdoor guy, nor do I want to be.
I wouldn't last either because of the bugs and everything.
Yeah. Well, plus my problem is I'm very shy. I'd be a little shy.
Oh, yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Probably. The main thing for me would be the bugs and stuff.
And I'm Irish, so I'd be a little insecure.
Ron called up and he said some people have been on that show and after they're like sick for months after because of the bug bites and
I believe
being outside all day and
get malaria and all kinds of things. Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
No thanks.
Right.
All right, that's my 2 cents.
Did you? By the
Talk
way,
to you later.
He's okay. Bye. I was going to ask him if he had coordinated anything with Peter White about dropping off the tablet, this terrible Tabletgate scandal. But I know from experience, once Eazy-G decides he's done with the call, he's done with the call. And I would have heard a loud click right after I'd asked the question. Not out of rudeness, not because he means to just hang up. He means to just hang up. But that does open up a line for you, 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. Let's see. So I do want to address a lot of, we've been talking about mental health and how that plays a role in these mass shootings and different people's perspectives on mental health. And it's fun. I started the show. I wanted to talk briefly about the shooting and then move on to other things, but we got into this, and that's just fine. Like I said earlier, I'm not complaining. This is an important subject, and there's a lot of great Facebook Live comments. So you can call us at 603-250-6007, but I do want to address some of the comments and feedback in the Facebook live chat. Not necessarily in the order that they were typed, because sometimes Facebook begins to jumble the comments around. But Michael Alber is saying, how is there a guarantee that someone who has a mental condition would seek the kind of care that would bestow that diagnosis? So Michael is bringing up, we were talking about the red flag laws and how people who have mental illness, in some states, apparently 39 states, according to what Wayne was saying, have some sort of red flag laws where, someone is barred from purchasing a firearm because of the mental illness. And, but I think the point that Michael is making with this question is, even if you agree, and by the way, I'm deeply conflicted on a lot of this myself, which is part of why I think it's so interesting to talk about, because I'm not even sure my own opinions and views on this are not fully crystallized. But even if you have these laws, there's still going to be mentally ill people who, the law is not going to catch them because not everyone struggling with mental illness. I mean, I've never been, I struggle with depression, but not on paper. I've never been diagnosed, but of course I've only been to a psychiatrist twice and it didn't go that well for me. But, let's see. Tom Blanchard is questioning, I guess, whether the shooter in Colorado was struggling with mental illness, I guess. Let's see. We're talking earlier about, Melanie Laliberte, I'm sure I'm still not saying that correctly, says, she didn't disagree with what Tony D was saying about, if someone is schizophrenic, for example, they shouldn't own a firearm. But blanket rules make her nervous. Michael Albert says, a person who has a mental condition could go get a gun before they've ever been diagnosed with that condition. Absolutely true. That is true. So Wayne is saying that according to the latest police info, yes, the shooter was suffering from a mental health disorder. I won't say his name. Some people don't think that, well, actually, let me say it this way. Some people have a belief that when there is a mass shooting, that no one in the media should say that person's name because there's this theory that the shooter is just trying to get famous or trying to get some sort of notoriety. So if you say their name, if people in the media say their name, that plays into that. That's not why I don't particularly agree with that. I think you should say their name if you're reporting the news. If you're doing a newscast, you should say the person's name because it's part of the news, right? It's news. Of course you should say their name. I just, I'm not any kind of a journalist. I'm just a political talk show host running my mouth. So I am uncomfortable saying the name of the shooter, but I don't avoid saying the name because I don't think it's appropriate to. I just avoid it because I just don't want that coming out of my mouth, the name of the individual who did the shooting. Abigail Jem says, I have a right, because we're talking about rights. And of course, people who are very pro Second Amendment, which I am, by the way. But that doesn't mean I'm not open to things like expanded background checks and dealing with this problem, this ongoing problem that keeps happening in a reasonable way. I'm really open to anything, but while protecting the rights of law-abiding citizens to have guns. But so we were talking about rights and the balance of that. And Abigail says, I have a right to go grocery shopping or go teach or go to work at the mall without the threat of getting killed in a mass shooting. Absolutely. Agreed. Pat Mills, who joins us, says, would you agree if you wanted a gun, could you get a gun? You think a background check is going to stop someone with intent? Well, that's the argument that in other words, I think what Pat is putting across is the argument that if you continue to tighten gun restrictions or if you don't let people purchase a gun legally, if you limit the legal bounds within one can purchase a gun, they're just going to buy it illegally. And then you get to a point where only the bad guys have guns because you don't let law-abiding citizens have guns anymore, but bad guys will still be able to get them, which I think is a valid point. Melanie says, much love for him being so open, I think referring to our friend Tony D. Abigail says, and again, we were talking about schizophrenia specifically at one point. Abigail says, it's not just schizophrenia, though. So many mental health issues send people into dark and dangerous places. Right, absolutely. It's not just about schizophrenia. Abigail says, my understanding is that a background check can delay a person's immediate purchase of a firearm. Is that right? Yes, and we often hear in these discussions about waiting periods and the value. I've always been a little bit skeptical about this part of it, to be honest with you. If this really accomplishes what people who advocate for it think that it does, maybe it does. Maybe there's something someone can show me to that effect, but the idea that having a waiting period is valuable so that you don't have someone going to apply for a permit and having the permit issued that same day and then going to buy a gun and then going to murder someone, I guess, that they're angry with. I guess that's the idea. If you have a waiting period, it gives the person who might be buying a gun angrily, it forces them to have to cool down and then maybe not go and commit that murder. I've always been skeptical of that. I've always found that a little dubious. Because I don't know how many murders are actually premeditated? These mass shootings are, but I don't know. I'm just skeptical about that. I'm skeptical about it. There may be something that will prove, that someone can show me that says, no, there actually is a value in this, but let's see. Pat Mills says, I'm going to skip that comment because I'm not sure exactly what it refers to, so I don't want to misunderstand or misinterpret it. So Abigail says, in the case of the Atlanta shooter last week, I believe he bought the gun that day. A background check could have prevented it or at least delayed it. Maybe the guy, had he had a few days to think about it, wouldn't have committed the crime. Just seems like good sense. They require more tests for driving a car than gun ownership. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very valid point, I think. Abigail says, I agree that a person who is determined, she agrees with Pat Mills. I agree with you that a person who is determined to go get a gun can get a gun, if not legally, illegally. Scary, sad stuff. Melanie says, I hope Tony will agree with me that no laws should be passed about people with mental illness conditions without their voices involved. Brian Mackey says that's a huge part of the problem. We are not heard or taken seriously. Some of us completely misunderstood. So how do we get that voice? That's a good observation. Bobby Champagne is in the chat room and says, what's the latest on Tabletgate? Yes, this terrible scandal. I don't know if you heard the show yesterday, Eazy-G, but Eric did say he's going to bring in the tablet. He's going to leave it for Peter White, who will then leave it for me, and I will then ship it back to Brian. Bobby says, has Eazy-G confessed? Has the tablet been recovered? Was the recipient a female from his past, as recently reported? Where is Eazy? Is he willing to take a lie detector test? Those are all very valid questions, Bobby Champagne. And if he calls back, we'll address those. I didn't know about this woman from his past. Brian Mackey says, you have to watch yesterday's show. It's worth it. Bobby says, I started that rumor about the female from his past. Why not pile on? It's allowed from what I gathered. Oh, always, yes. Bobby says, I've been busy trying to get a shot and to get my loved ones shot as well. He means with the vaccine. Oh, with a needle full of that, some of that vaccine yummy goodness, LOL. Yes, absolutely. Brian Mackey says, I got mine. Arm hurts, LOL, but no other issues. Tom Blanchard says, regarding the tablet, Eric he said he's going to hang it on the doorknob so that Matt can spend his money to mail it back. No. Brian Mackey already PayPal'd me some money to ship it. Bobby says, my 81-year-old mom got it, the shot, not the tablet. Wouldn't that be funny if Eazy-G, it turns out he had actually given the tablet to Bobby Champagne's 81-year-old mother? What a scandal that would be. My 81-year-old mom got it and gave me the thumbs up. That's all I need for incentive, LOL. They say if you hydrate, the experience is a little better. Oh, with the vaccine? I'm a full hydrator by nature. I've always got an ice water going. That's good. That's good. Americans in general don't stay hydrated enough. Let's see. DJ Midas says, Eazy-G prefers to shoot people indoors. Eazy-G, I hope not. By the way, DJ Midas, of course, part of the WMNH family, host of Late Night Delight, which you can hear every Saturday night from 12 midnight to 4 a.m. with a replay on Sunday night. Bobby says Eazy-G strikes me as a Barney Fife type of gun owner. Rob Dion says Easy still works for the afternoon show. I thought the position was up for grabs. Well, no, Eazy-G will be, from what I understand, he'll be Skyping in on Friday with a brand new entertainment report. And we all look forward to that, just quivering with anticipation. Bobby says, I'm not grabbing anything of Eazy-G's, specifically his low-swinging fruit. Well, I think that's wise. We are still in the pandemic. It's the COVID era. You should not be grabbing Eazy-G's low-hanging fruit. I would agree with that. Bobby says some people with mental illness are the last to know. It's true. It's a good point. Others have known for years, some their whole lives, and they think much differently than others. Bobby says, I love how some people think that laws prevent crimes or deeds. People who commit acts with guns rarely consider the laws beforehand. Well, I think that is true, actually. I mean, we have to have laws, clearly, unless you're an anarchist libertarian who thinks everything should just be legal. I haven't heard from Dave Ridley yet today, but I think in the case, and mass shootings clearly are at least somewhat premeditated, right? They are planned. There is some planning that goes into them. I think most murder of an individual probably is not premeditated. I think it's probably much more spontaneous. But that's part of why, too, I've never, one of several reasons why I've never supported the death penalty is because it's not a deterrent, and part of why it's not a deterrent is people, when they murder someone, they're not, no one, I assume. I mean, I could be wrong about this. I've never myself contemplated murdering another human being. But, outside of, just if you're really mad at somebody and you say, I could kill him. No, but I've never seriously contemplated it. But I assume that most people who do commit some sort of murder, they don't stop and think, what are the laws in this state? Is there a possibility that I could be executed for carrying out this murder? Or is the worst that's going to happen to me that I'll spend the rest of my life in prison? Because if the worst that's going to happen to me is I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison, I might as well go ahead and commit that murder. Oh, but if we have the death penalty in this state, then I probably shouldn't. In that case, it's probably a bad idea. No, so there's no deterrent. There's a reason why the death penalty is on my mind, but we're not going to get to it today. Tom Blanchard says, if we all had a gun, do you think that would have happened? If everyone had a gun, be like a shootout at the old OK Corral, I think. No, I know the point Tom's trying to make, though. It's like that thing, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Melanie says, pointing to a mental illness condition for reason of mass murder can be a cop-out to ignore the way the mental health system fails people. No, I don't think anyone's trying to ignore. I mean, I think that's been a large point of our discussion today is that we do have a mental health crisis in this country that does need to be addressed, and the mental health system needs to be strengthened so that people get the help that they need. But I do think, and I'm not sure if this is what you're responding to, Melanie, it might be, but I was making the point with Tony that, I think we can safely assume that anyone who would go out and commit a mass murder is clearly mentally ill. Something has to be very, very wrong with you to do that, to actually carry that out. And a cop-out for bad gun laws, Melanie says. Tony D says, Melanie, the problem is a person with mental illness isn't heard. We're told it's all in your head. You're right, it is, but how does one express our dying need to explain ourselves when no one wants to listen? It turns to the voices in the head that take control, where you fight day in and day out to block it out, referring to schizophrenia. And Brian points out, well said, it's a lonely place to live, even if you have friends. Melanie responded to Tony and said, which is why the labels and across-the-board rules make me nervous. Too easy to dismiss someone after learning of a mental illness condition. Brian Mackey says if the labels are given by real doctors, then maybe, just maybe, people would start listening. Tony D says, so if someone with a mental illness condition is having suicidal ideations, would you want that person owning a gun? What if this person has expressed their suicidal ideations? Should they have a gun? Well, that raises an interesting question for me because, now, look, I don't own a gun. I'm not a gun guy. I am very pro Second Amendment generally, although, like I said, I'm open to solutions for trying to make sure that this doesn't keep happening, these mass shootings. So I'm certainly open to expanded background checks or whatever we needed to do, as long as we're not unreasonably encroaching on the rights of others to own a gun. But I can tell you, I would be safe owning a gun. I say that because I am someone who struggles with depression, and I have had suicidal ideations. But in my case, and I don't know statistically how many people this would apply to, I have no idea, but my suicidal ideations are not actionable. And what I mean by that is I'm never going to act on them. I have had them. I haven't had them recently, but I have had them. I mean, I've certainly struggled with depression recently, but the ideations I haven't had recently. Nor am I on record ever telling a mental health professional that no, that's not true. Well, yeah, maybe that's not true now that I'm thinking about it, but I'm not a danger to anyone or to myself. I'm not going to harm myself. I'm afraid to harm myself, and I'm certainly afraid to harm anyone else. The one time, yeah, I guess I am on record as having expressed, I forgot for a moment my trip to Concord Hospital in 2014. Yeah, 2014, when the ideations got severe enough that I thought I should go talk to somebody. And I had to sit in a rubber room, and I had to sit in a rubber room until I could convince them that, no, I'm not going to harm anyone. But I remember, or myself, but I remember being surprised, actually really surprised, when one of the questions I was asked is, do you feel that you're a danger to yourself or to anyone else? And I remember how thrown I was by the question, because the anyone else part had never entered my mind. I went there because I felt like, the ideations had gotten pretty severe. I don't think I was close to actually taking my own life, but the ideations had gotten so severe, I felt that I was in an emergency situation. But the idea of actually harming another person was so far from my mind that it really kind of shocked me when I was asked that question. Like, wow, no, of course not. But I don't need a gun. I don't feel that I need a gun. But ironically, part of why I feel like I don't need a gun is because lots of other people have guns, so I feel safe. And I know that, but that's the mind of a person who's very pro-Second Amendment, even though I personally don't have a gun, don't need a gun, don't want a gun, don't really like guns that much. But if you are a law-abiding American and you're safe, I would like you to be able to have one if you so choose. There's an expression, an armed society is a polite society. And here in New Hampshire, we're armed to the teeth, and it's very safe here. We're one of the most heavily armed states in the country, and we're one of the safest. So all the rest of you have guns. I feel okay. I don't feel like I need one. Let's see. Well, there's a lot more comments, but we're not gonna. Yeah, we're not gonna get to them all. That's okay. We do have a little bit of time left, and I do want to at least just get to maybe one or two other quick things. Let me give the number again, 603-250-6007 if you want to get in with a call, 603-250-6007. Just a little update, some news from out of Keene, New Hampshire. Ian Freeman, one of the hosts of Free Talk Live, which is a nationally syndicated radio show, he was arrested. Dave Ridley called about this a couple of times, and some others were arrested as well. So this has been a recurring topic on the show. There is an update on this, courtesy of the Union Leader, unionleader.com. Keene activists protest the arrests of who they're calling the Crypto Six, the 6 individuals who are accused and have been arrested over this cryptocurrency scam, or they're accused of conducting a scam. And the reason this caught my eye is Dave Ridley, the last time he called, he was talking about participating in this protest and the whole free Ian Freeman thing and all of that. So just a little update on that. The Union Leader reports about a dozen activists associated with the Free Keene Cooperative stood outside the Keene Police Department on Saturday to protest the recent raids of Free Keene leader Ian Freeman's home and the arrests of the so-called Crypto Six. Freeman, Aria DeMezzo, and Nobody, formerly known as Rich Paul. Remember, Rich Paul, he changed his name to Nobody when he decided to run for governor so that you had the option to choose Nobody on the ballot when you went to vote. Get it? And others were arrested last week on federal money laundering charges. Freeman's Leverett Street home was raided along with his Bitcoin operation known as an embassy, quote unquote, on Marlborough Street. Bonnie Cruz said, quote, "The government stole my boyfriend, and the Keene Police Department should not have agreed to work with the FBI on trumped-up, dumbass charges," unquote. And that's what Dave Ridley said when he called. He was protesting the Keene Police Department's involvement. I guess they were directing traffic while the FBI was conducting their raid or something like that. Cruz was sleeping in the Leverett Street home when Keene police, FBI agents, and the agents of the United States Treasury Department busted in. Oh, so according to this article, the Keene police actually were involved in the raid itself. Busted in to arrest Freeman and the others. Cruz, who was not charged, said she was handcuffed and detained for more than an hour during the raid. She said, quote, "The Keene Police Department should have stayed out of it. I woke up to my roommate yelling and lots of noise, and I'm naked," unquote. She and Freeman grabbed robes as police and federal agents broke glass and broke in, shouting at them and terrifying her, she said, quote, "They made me walk in glass, and they made me put shoes on with glass in them," unquote. Well, I will say, I mean, that is terribly inconsiderate, if not just plain rude. I personally would not be happy about having to wear shoes with glass in them. In fact, I'll tell you a little something about myself. Every morning before I put my shoes on, I shake them to make sure there's no glass. Cruz said Bitcoin is not a crime and the charges are bogus. The Leverett Street duplex is also headquarters for many of Freeman's Free Keene organizations, including the Shire Free Church and, the Shire Free Church Monadnock. Freeman is charged with laundering money using his churches and DeMezzo's Reformed Satanic Temple as part of a multi-million-dollar scheme. Freeman had $180,000 in cash in his home, according to authorities, who found a room filled with 26 guns and thousands of rounds of ammunition. The home is close to a charter middle school. Jason Gerhard from Northfield showed up at the protest to make his voice heard against what he sees as government overreach. The Keene Police Department's cooperation with federal law enforcement is a step too far, Gerhard said. Quote, the government has just grown so humongous. We don't want the federal government in our lives, unquote. Well, if you don't want the federal government in your life, why are you protesting the Keene Police Department? They're not part of the federal government. Freeman is charged with operating a multi-million-dollar... You know what? He probably had glass in his shoes, and he's just confused. Freeman is charged with operating a multi-million-dollar Bitcoin exchange business that facilitated laundering money from scammers across the country. Also arrested with Freeman, DeMezzo, and nobody... were Colleen Fordham of Allstead, who operates the Mighty Moose Mart, adjacent to Freeman's Bitcoin Embassy, Renee Spinella of Derry, and Andrew Spinella, also of Derry. They are a married couple, I believe. DeMezzo, Fordham, and the Spinellas are free on their own recognizance. Nobody waived his right to a detention hearing and will remain in jail pending trial. Freeman is, well, he's used to that. I mean, he spent a year in prison previously. Freeman is seeking to be released and is awaiting an order from federal judge Andrea Johnstone on his request to be released. By the way, from what I understand, part of the hesitation in releasing Ian Freeman on his own recognizance is that he's quite wealthy and he can access... I mean, I guess he's got something like $2 million in Bitcoin that he can access from anywhere in the world. So the concern is he might flee. Chris Wade, a Free Keene blogger, said Freeman's Bitcoin Embassy will be reopening soon, though he declined to get into details. He said the charges against Freeman and the others don't make sense. He said, quote, they're bogus. There was at least one part of it that was entirely fabricated, unquote. In 2014, Freeman's home was raided and his computer seized by the FBI as part of a child sex abuse images investigation. He was never charged in that investigation. By the way, he claims he never got all the computers back either. The Free Keene Group was initially part of the Free State Project, an effort to get libertarian-leaning individuals around the country to move to New Hampshire and become embedded in the state's political, economic, and social structures. The FSP disassociated itself from Freeman in 2014, citing his advocacy for lowering the age of consent laws. Yes, it was felt that it's getting a little creepy here with Ian Freeman, and perhaps we don't want that. All right. We are almost out of time. We don't particularly have time to get into anything new, so we'll begin to wrap up. But Mike Pelopita in the chat room says, great show today. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you, Mike, of course, from one of our wonderful sponsors here at WMNH Queen City Cabinetry. Brian Mackey says, wonderful conversation today. Everyone have a safe and thoughtful night. Very good, very good. Just to give you a sneak peek, some of the things that I do want to get into as the week continues. I want to talk about the border crisis. And yes, I call it a crisis. I know the Biden administration won't call it a crisis. I call it a crisis, and I do have some criticisms. I give them an A+ so far on the pandemic response. But I am seeing some other things that I'm not so thrilled with, and that's one of them, and the lack of transparency. We'll get into that later in the week, I'm sure. Also, too, Mike Doyle and his call yesterday about the executive orders regarding the price of insulin. I found something on that. I was going to get to that today, but that's okay. We will save that for another day as well. And, we live in an era where the news cycle just moves so fast. There's always a million different things going on. It is quite the interesting time that we live in. So with that, we shall wrap up today. Thank you all so much for joining me. And everyone who called, everyone in the chat room. If you missed any part of today's show, it'll be up in just a little bit, mattconnerton.com. And love you all. Stay safe. And we'll leave you with a little Public Enemy to cap off today's program. And I will talk at y'all a little bit later, or more specifically, tomorrow, 4 p.m. Bye, everybody.